Hello friends, welcome to Subnautica. Now you all know that I love this game and its world. Heck, I have dozens of videos covering crumbs of lore wherever I could dig them up on this mostly water-covered planet. With that said, the storytelling in Subnautica isn't completely spotless, and if one were to look hard enough, they might be able to spot a hole or two. And that's exactly what we're going to be spotting today. I have browsed the web, as well as my own knowledge of the game's lore, to bring you 5 potential plot holes that have yet to be properly answered by the game's lore. Now to be clear, according to Google, a plot hole is, quote, a gap or inconsistency in a storyline that goes against the flow of logic established by the story's plot. I'll take these gaps, describe them, and then give you my best guess as to what the explanation could be. With that said, close the hatch, grab a filtered water, and let's dive in. And let us start with a rather simple one. The QEP, or Quarantine Enforcement Platform, is a precursor structure located on the mountain island that is responsible for shooting down both the Aurora and the Sunbeam during the events of the game, and quite possibly the Mercury ship as well. Now, this is all fine, but there are some issues with this building. First, we see the gun physically aim at Sunbeam when the ship approaches, and the laser it produces fires in a straight line. So, if this is the main tool the Precursors have used to maintain quarantine, what if a ship decides to land on the other side of the planet? Well, there are possible explanations here. Maybe the laser can curve around the planet, acting more like a seeking missile, or maybe there are more guns, though that doesn't seem likely, since Sector 0, clearly being a large outpost for Precursors, doesn't have one. The biggest issue of all, however, in my opinion, is that the gun is disabled via a single non-infected individual hitting a button. First, is that really enough proof that Kharaa has been bested and the entire quarantine can be lifted? And second, it kinda dooms the whole planet, right? What if a cure was discovered off-world and they needed to land? And if you want to argue that they already knew the planet was lost, why? The Emperor still seemed like a solid shot at getting more enzyme, and if they truly did believe the planet to be lost, why not just destroy all life on it? We know they have the technology for that. Perhaps another bad call by Alan. Sure wouldn't have been the first. And now let's move away from Precursors for a bit and talk about Marguerite Maida. She was a part of the original Degassi crew that crashed on planet 4546b around a decade ago by the time the first game takes place. Naturally, she's presumed long dead from either Kharaa or her battle with the Leviathan. She is, after all, last seen clinging onto a freaking Reaper, but then Below Zero came along and lo and behold, she lives. The question is, how? Now, the story does explain that the Reaper eventually died, floated to the surface, past the ghosts, and drifted all the way to Sector 0. That's fine. I buy her just being insanely cool. But how is Marguerite not dead from the bacterium? The PDA estimates the incubation time to be around 2 weeks, after which the organism quickly shuts down and dies. By the time Below Zero takes place, Marguerite would have been on the planet for 12 plus years. Issue is, most possible arguments for this one are rough at best. Maybe the cold killed the bacterium? Well, the frozen Leviathan disproves this, and additionally, you don't think the hyper-advanced Precursors could have figured this one out? Well, maybe she's immune. The bacterium has reportedly killed over 140 billion individuals, including every other human who has contracted it without a cure. I guess it is possible, just highly unlikely. Is she just too epic to die? Yeah, that's probably it. And speaking of the cure, why haven't the Emperor eggs been hatched earlier? So, the Sea Emperor Leviathan we find towards the end of Subnautica is at the time the only remaining hatched animal of its species. Hatching the remaining eggs becomes key to getting complete Enzyme 42, a cure for Kharaa that Emperors produce naturally, except the captured one because it's basically too old. Now my question is, why hasn't this happened earlier? The Emperor does note that the Precursors that captured her couldn't hear her telepathic communication, but even so, the plants required to hatch the eggs are not that hard to find in the ecosystem, and it seems that a hyper-advanced race like the Precursors should have been able to figure that one out. Additionally, the Emperor only really wants to see the babies hatch. That's its main goal. Surely, the Precursors would have been the best way to achieve this, since there is no way to know if any other creature will arrive to the planet before the Emperor dies. She has managed to train peepers to carry the incomplete enzyme around. Couldn't she have trained them to bring the plants to the Precursors? Or heck, just arrange around them to make it very obvious? Now, some people also want to point out that the Degasi not hatching them is a plot hole, but I disagree. Bart does note some visions in his logs, which could be the Emperor, and Marge doesn't exactly seem the type to help. I think they just ran out of time before they could do it. And speaking of the cure, besides Marge, how is anything else alive in Sector 0? So, Sector 0 is a mega biome located in one of the poles of planet 4546b, where Robin crashes at the start of Subnautica below zero. While we don't know exactly how far it is from the crater of the first game, we can guesstimate by the sight from orbit at the end of the original, and from Marguerite's PDA that details her floating there over a period of 3 weeks. This area has a rich and diverse ecosystem that is a marvel to look at, but how did it survive Kharaa? First, you might be thinking, well, it didn't. The animals only moved in after the events of the first game, but then there couldn't be any unique creatures here that we didn't see in the first game. Plus, we find creatures here that couldn't easily cross large bodies of water. Okay, well, what if they were all in eggs and only hatched once the cure was released? Well, Marge's log disproves this as she first noticed penguins which ticked her off to a nearby landmass. Okay, well, what if the bacterium never reached Sector 0? Well, the frozen Leviathan unfortunately disproves this theory as well, and we have already spoken about the cold theory earlier with Marge. Maybe the peeper pipe system leads to Sector 0 as well? Well, surely, if that were the case, we would have seen regular peepers in Sector 0 and other fish from there in the base game. Either way you slice it, I just can't think of a way Sector 0 could have remained alive with Kharaa on the planet. And to wrap up, humor me for a bit of tomfoolery. Let's do a bit of a fun, silly one at the end. What is the purpose of all the Precursor museum pieces? In several of the Precursor bases, you can find relics or Precursor tools suspended in display cases, seemingly for decoration. Now, this would make sense on one of their home worlds, but Planet 4546b was purely scientific, with the goal of finding a cure for the bacterium. If any tools were brought, they'd likely be used, not kept in display cases, and for relics like the sword, don't know. Of course, they're there to deepen the lore of the planet, but I'm not sure there is a canon reason they would be there. But that brings us to the end of the video. Now, just to be clear, I don't think any of the things I pointed out today should reduce your enjoyment of the games. They're still awesome. But hey, it would be cool if we could answer at least some of them with the next one. With that, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And hey, if you have any other plot holes or theories of your own, please leave them down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read them. With that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of today, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.